Good morning. Welcome to Flagship Studios at JPM. I'm Avak Kahvejian. I'm a general partner at Flagship and a pioneering business unit leader, developing new bioplatform companies at Flagship. Today we have a really interesting conversation lined up for all of you today. We have some really important partners of mine, colleagues who work with us on origination. We often get asked questions about how we do what we do, who does it, what are bioplatforms, and we're going to try to dispel all of these questions and answer all of them for you today. And we have the protagonists here who can tell you straight what they've been doing and what they're up to and what the future holds for some of our new innovations. Sometimes people ask me outside the industry, what is a bioplatform or what is a platform? I often point to what they're holding in their hand or one of these devices. A piece of hardware and a software ecosystem that is essentially generic, something that everyone can use and that others can develop multiple applications on. Really a universal device, a universal utility. And in our world, closer to home, the quintessential platform is Moderna, a universal capability to make nucleic acids, a foundry for creating LNP encapsulated RNA that can be programmed for virtually any disease, creating vaccines, cancer vaccines, rare disease medicines, and so on. So that's what we essentially do. We create multi-product bioplatforms, and we want to give you a sneak peek into how we do it, why we do it, who does it, and like I said, the colleagues here will give you direct and specific examples of some of the things that they're working on and what's coming. So why don't we start with you, Molly? Why don't you introduce yourself and one of the bioplatforms you're working on?
Awesome. I'm Molly Gibson. I'm an origination partner at Flagship and a leader of one of our pioneering business units. I spent a lot of time thinking about how AI is going to transform the future of science, and a lot of my companies have that theme within them. So an example of one is Generate Biomedicines. We founded this company in 2018 really with the premise that AI was going to transform the field of protein therapeutics, and that AI itself could actually generate specific and precise proteins for any therapeutic function and any therapeutic modality. And so that company has been now building for the past 6 or 7 years on that and actually translating these findings into the clinic with some really profound results. So that's an example of a type of company where we're infusing AI into the science to build a novel bioplatform.
Kyle.
Great. I'm Kyle Chang, origination partner here. I've been with Flagship for about 4 years now. I work closely in Ignacio Martinez's group, where we create bioplatforms to serve both human health as well as agriculture health, as well as sustainability. We call this planetary health. And so before that, I've been working in the startup world for about 15 years, creating human health companies outside of the Flagship ecosystem. So I have a bit of a perspective on what it's like creating platforms, here in Flagship and how that's unique. Maybe one of the companies I'd like to highlight that we've been working on is called Denali Therapeutics, relevant to Nubar's note earlier this week about polyintelligence. Denali is really a great example of a company that wants to learn from nature. We're focused on a subset of natural product chemistry we call anthromolecules that have co-evolved with humans for millennia. And this has been a rich source of drugs, but to identify the ones that are useful for therapeutic use, it's really relied on serendipity and decades of academic work. So by using ML tools and accelerating discovery of leads from this chemical space, we're able to pull from nature and refine that and insert that into our drug development process to identify new small molecule candidates to treat inflammatory diseases.
Great. Jake?
Awesome to be here. A privilege to speak about building platforms, which is the core of what we do at Flagship. I've been doing that now for close to a decade on our team. Came to Flagship from MIT and have had the good fortune of helping breathe life into 3 of our platform companies. First, a company called Sana Biotechnology that's developing cell and gene therapies to cure diseases focused on regenerative medicine, immuno-oncology, immunology. After that, started a company called Tessera Therapeutics, where we've developed technology that allows us to write new genes into the genome of cells by delivering just RNA into those cells. And more recently, I've spent a lot of time leading a company called Quotient Therapeutics. And I'm super excited about the platform that we're building at Quotient. It is really a great example of what it means to be a platform. What we are doing is sequencing the DNA of individual cells in our bodies based upon the recognition that each of us actually has a distinct sequence of DNA, a distinct genome in all 30 trillion of the cells in our body. And what we've shown at Quotient is by sequencing this DNA, we can discover new drug targets, which are the most important source of data for decisions that we make in the drug discovery pipelines of every company in our industry. And the reason that this is a core platform is we have a consistent team, a consistent set of methods and technologies, and we can broadly go across diseases, change the input, keep consistent the machine, and find a new output for each of those distinct applications. And happy to describe that in more detail later.
Yeah, so I really want to get into that with each of you to describe why you believe your platforms are really universal or at least applicable to multiple things and how you navigate that. So let's talk a little bit about that. Kyle, why don't you go deeper into it?
You know, when we start these companies in what we call our Protoco phase, a lot is really trying to push the envelope of seeing what's possible with the tools in this platform that we're building. And that's what really gives us this confidence about universality of the platform. But really, it comes from a therapeutic point of view in the candidates you find. Trying to start to fill out a pipeline starts to bring tangibility and reality to the platform. And so at Montai, you know, we've gone through these evolutions and we've decided that we want to focus on IAI because this space is really highly networked. And likewise, when you're building a team, it's hard to build expertise across all therapeutic areas. So to be able to focus and concentrate your internal resources in a place is really allows you to accelerate the platform and the proof of that platform by demonstrating progress against multiple candidates. And you know, I think you can do it once, you can do it twice, that could still be luck. But when you start populating a pipeline with 3 or 4 or 5 interesting candidates, that starts to show the strength of your platform as well as the repeatability.
Just to build on that thought, you hear people talk about trying to have a pipeline in a pill. And these are targets, or these are drugs like Keytruda, a drug that can work across many indications, but you keep the drug consistent. It is, I'd argue, impossible to predict which of these drugs are going to become pipelines in a pill until you bring them into people. That's expensive and it takes a long time. And this is what pharma is incredible at. What we build are pipelines in a platform, just like Kyle's describing. Every company we start has the potential to create a pipeline. And because of that, I would argue that they're in fact the lowest risk investments you can make because of the opportunity to create a broad set of therapeutic opportunities by investing in that core technology, like what Montai has built, what Generate's built, Tessera has built, Quotient's building, that can be deployed over and over again across different indications.
Yeah, Molly, why don't we kind of delve into platform product market fit and how we explore that with one of your platforms, for example.
Yeah, for sure. And before I get into that, I wanted to expand a little bit
Sure,
on what Jake is saying and around thinking about like the economies of scale of our platforms. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we think a lot about is how do you get that economy of scale? How do you get that generalizability from our platforms? One thing that I've been also thinking a lot about recently is how is that going to change in the age of AI? So just as we think about the economies of scale, so getting a whole pipeline from a single platform, I think the future is going to also look different with AI. How are you going to get the intelligence of scale? So not only how do you think about a platform creating multiple products just from its generalizability, but how does a platform get smarter over time when you inject AI? And that's a whole new realm of platforms that we have the opportunity to build in this age of AI. But equally challenging is the ability to then use that platform to create value. You know, what we do here is not just to create platforms that do interesting science, but that science has to be connected to something that people care about, something that's going to make impact. I think all of us here, the reason that we're at Flagship is because we want to create value for the world, and we want to create impact in the world. And the only way that you can do that is to really create this, you know, platform market fit, product market fit. We think about this a lot for our platforms around at Generate, for example. A lot of what we thought about is what are the types of things that we weren't able to do before with existing technology that now using AI to generate novel proteins for specific functions that we can do. So types of proteins where People have wanted to optimize directly for function, but we had no mechanism to do that before. And so trying to identify those perfect fits, or there are mechanisms where if you could make this protein bind 100 times tighter, that would open up entirely new therapeutic windows. But you just can't do that with existing technologies. Honestly, you can't even measure that tight in high throughput to be able to do any kind of screening. So if you can use AI and understand the specifics of the mechanism and the specifics of the binding, you then can actually reach those new heights of therapeutics that weren't possible before. So it's all about connecting the technology specifically. What does the technology uniquely enable you to do? And then how do you match that to an unmet need in the world that's going to create value for patients and investors, but then also just create impact in the world?
Absolutely. Like, this is, I think, just as important for our companies as what is the platform. It's what do you do with the platform? How do you go from having a platform to actually creating a pipeline? At Tessera, we thought about how we could build a technology that allows us to write genes into the genome. And then where are the places where we can do something no one's ever been able to do before? And what we realized is there are applications in genetic diseases and immuno-oncology where the ability to just deliver RNA into a cell and edit the gene that causes alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, the mutation that causes sickle cell disease, being able to write a chimeric antigen receptor into cells in the body would create a set of opportunities which were previously impossible for people to even imagine. And now only once we've imagined this platform, brought it to life, and are deploying it, can you conceive of how you go from platform to a broad pipeline of differentiation.
Yeah, it's these insights that are so important to actually creating the value. What's the win state of the platform that we often talk about? If you're just doing something slightly better, slightly faster, you start to lose the power of why are we building this company in the first place, this platform in the first place. We really want to make sure that we're placing these platforms in places that previous technology really just couldn't touch.
So we talked a little bit about, you have a platform, where do you apply it? But let's talk about the hard part we do in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? The investing in the platform to get it to a certain point before we can apply it. Talk to me a little bit about that challenge. Maybe Kyle, you want to start? I know you all have gone through this, I've gone through it. And how do we decide how much to invest in one versus the other? And
it's a dynamic and iterative process. And when we launch our companies, we work together to define goals of what can be achieved in the constraints of our Protoco period, which is a modest investment over a year or two, right? And so we may have visions of great platforms that can change the world, but we have to take that first step. And we need to be able to demonstrate that with some limited resources. So that's really where we start. But as we all talked about, then you need to start to focus your investment of your people, your knowledge, and start demonstrating achievements of your platform against known benchmarks. And this is where I think you have to manage risk. If you're coming in with new modalities, maybe you don't want to go after brand new targets. If you have a new gene editor, maybe you want to go after some genetic diseases that have been very well described, and what are the changes I need to make an impact on a patient? What are the levels of this protein I need to achieve to make a clinically positive outcome? And so managing that risk as the platform evolves and you understand where it excels and where you still need to grow the effort allows you to get some wins along the way. And that generates confidence for us to invest more in the project for potential partners as well as outside investors coming in.
Do either of you have examples of the platform was able to do X in the beginning and we did it, but then we worked on it to make it do Y, and we had a progression in terms of the capabilities of the platform over time?
I have an example of that from Generate.
Yeah.
One of the things that our vision for Generate was always that you could create a de novo binder to any point on any protein specifically. And when we started out thinking about this was pre-AlphaFold. This was before really anybody had been thinking about using AI to apply to generate novel proteins. And so that was a vision that we had. We actually didn't know, and the field didn't know if that was even possible. And so we started out looking at, well, where are there valuable things that you could do if you understood the connection between the protein sequence and the function that is on the way to creating de novo proteins. And so we really focused on multi-parameter optimization. So AI allows you to optimize not just for the binding, but for all of the developability properties that you need to develop a drug along with it. And so by creating that technology, we're able to move the platform along, and along the way be developing all of our de novo technology. And now we're able to repeatedly and routinely create de novo proteins with the platform. And so that opens up entirely new value pools that weren't available to us from the beginning, but are only available to us from those investments from the early pipeline.
I think of a similar example from Quotient Therapeutics, where we're sequencing the DNA of individual cells in the body. When we started the company, our academic co-founders had shown that it was possible to sequence the DNA of individual cells and to find targets from that information. But they'd only done it in one disease, a disease called MASH. And that affects one organ system, the liver. We saw that if what was true in the liver was true across the whole body, then we would have the opportunity to have a better approach to find targets for every disease, every aspect of human health. So we started with this one disease, but now we've shown that we can apply this to other cardiometabolic diseases, to infectious diseases, to autoimmune diseases, to immuno-oncology, to genetic diseases. And we have real exciting early data that we're just generating now in neurodegeneration, respiratory, the list goes on and on and on. So we start from this single insight, and what we are so uniquely good at Flagship, in my opinion, is daring to dream about how we could go from that initial insight to a huge, broad opportunity enabled by these platform technologies that we create.
Maybe one example from the Montauk point of view of what we couldn't do early on that we can do now. When you train ML models, you have to give an example of what good looks like so it can find more of that. And when we were starting our platform, we had a more limited chemical space that we were working on. We've since grown it to over 200 million molecules in our virtual library. That limited chemical space allowed us to find things, new chemistry, but really we're looking at targets like transcription factors, GPCRs, inhibiting enzymes, things that we know small molecules can already do, right? But since we've expanded this chemical space, we've been able to identify molecules that disrupt protein-protein interactions at the level of cytokines and cytokine receptors. And we could only do that when we got those little wins along the way, had the commitment to expand that chemical space, grow our library, and find those hits that we were able to train against. And so that's, I think that's a nice example of making sure you can collect some wins along the way before you swing for the fences with the ultimate goal that you want.
Yeah. So you guys are describing very non-linear paths. You're describing a lot of thinking, trying. Tell me a little bit about the culture you have to build, the teams you have to build to do this. We're starting from scratch. So it's often one or two of us in a room, and then we have to build teams and companies. So describe some of those journeys.
Yeah.
I'd love to start because culture is just so important, right, to all of these entities. And I think that's where Flagship really provides that culture of innovation down to all of our protocos. When people look for jobs and they see these stealth mode companies with only a handful of employees, they're taking a risk and leaping and joining a company. And usually it's incredibly exciting science and cutting edge science that draws them there. That's exactly what we have here. We have that culture of innovation, but I think they also have the understanding that Flagship is willing to take these bigger leaps and wanting to go for these really innovative platforms. And people are excited to come to these companies and learn hands-on how we do things. And I think what's really important at these early stages of companies is having really clear communication. So I mentioned how dynamic it is as you get data, react to data, determine where the platform is working better or not. You want to collect those wins, and the plans that you have on day one might not be exactly the ones you execute for Protoco, right? You're trying to show where these platforms work, and these teams need to be able to move dynamically with you. And I think small teams are actually best suited for that, right? People with that right mindset of understanding what we're trying to achieve and understanding what the data coming in tells us about our platform, and to be able to react quickly.
Beautiful. I couldn't agree more. We talk a lot about explorations as part of our process at Flagship. I like to zoom out and think that every time we set out to do something, we're going on an expedition. And the exploration is part of figuring out where you want to go. What we try to identify in our companies are these enduring peaks, these opportunities where if we can reach the summit, everyone, us and the rest of the world, will undoubtedly look at that as a first achievement, of planting the flag at the top of something a human achievement over the life arc of all of us. And to do that effectively, you need to have grit and resilience and agility and the willingness to push through challenges. One of the teams I'm the most proud about that we've built at Flagship is in a company that's still in stealth mode, where we've been trying to summit one of these enduring peaks over the last couple of years. And it has not been the easiest journey, not at all, compared to other companies where we started with a platform that was already somewhat operational. We've had to push through challenges, and I'm more proud of what that team has accomplished because of that than some of the other efforts that we've already announced publicly, which are objectively just absolutely crushing it.
I think to add to that, I totally agree. Resiliency in these early teams is essential. The other component is, as we're talking about, we're constantly moving, between different states of stability, constantly dealing with different types of tensions within the organization. You mentioned how much do we invest in the platform, how quickly do we go towards pipeline, how do you hold both of those things in tension? The teams that I've seen really excel at building these platforms that are really going out into unknown territory can deal with those uncertainties, deal with those tensions, deal with those kind of things that seem to be at odds with each other but are actually synergistic and actually necessary to hold both at the same time. To hold both the probability that you can reach that summit and the probability that that summit's actually over there, and you actually want to summit this other peak that might end up being actually where the most value is. And teams that can navigate that and just quickly say, oh yeah, we're going to go this way, react to data, go the opposite way, and then be able to hold all of that together in one picture at the same time. Is really essential to be able to be successful in these really unknown territories.
Yeah, one thing you guys left unsaid though is that yes, small teams are agile, but these teams are not always small, and they're actually not always of the same ilk. They're not coming from the same background.
Yeah.
So we have to touch on that. I know it's thrown around a lot: interdisciplinary research, interdisciplinary work. But I think in our case, we're re-architecting some of these. Yeah. We're architecting these platforms from scratch, so we have to re-architect the organization. So talk about that. We know AI is impinging upon everything we do, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, maybe there's 2 points there. One, the team may be small, but the ecosystem is large, right? And the support provided by the ecosystem is unlike any other VC or venture creation organization out there. And to be able to have, the support on the machine learning side from the expertise we're building with pioneering intelligence, but also the experience I don't know, we're probably over hundreds of years of R&D development experience, in our ecosystem to be able to support each one of these early stage companies. It's a really unique, unfair advantage. But to your point about harmonizing communication across functions that come from very different places, namely computation and biology, it's something that you have to do intentionally. And at Montai, we spent a lot of time, going through a lot of the jargon that these teams use and get them aligned so we know exactly what we're working towards and what we're trying to deliver. Because just that little misunderstanding about what someone thought they wanted can waste a tremendous amount of time, and we don't have time. Right? We're trying to innovate here, and we need to move with speed, and we need to move with efficiency. And so it may seem mundane, but just getting people to use the same words and the same language so that there's an understanding across all levels, right? Not just at C levels and VP levels, but with engineers and research assistants that are in the weeds with what they're working on, to know exactly what they're pushing towards and what they're maybe rowing towards, so everyone's on that same page.
Yeah, I think this is a core part of the culture of all of our companies. We spent a lot of time also at Generate and some of the new companies we're working on figuring out how do you create a culture where everybody's voice is at the table. And that's from top to bottom of the organization and across the organization, every function. I don't think this is the case as much today, but when we started Generate, there was a strong sense that computation was a service to biologists. And we had to fight that every single day to make computation and biology equal. We had to think about how do we not make our computation team elevated above our biologists. It really is that these teams are working as equals towards the same mission. And this happens today in different domains. So I spend a lot of time in the AI world now. And we think about this a lot with scientists and engineers. So engineers that are building the infrastructure to train models at scale are absolutely essential to the success of these companies. Oftentimes, they've been seen in the same light as a support system towards the AI scientists. But really, how do we create that tension so that we can make them as equals and make everybody that is working in these companies essential to the mission that we're on, and creating that kind of culture where everybody knows their place, understands how their work is contributing to where we're going, and that their work is essential to where we're headed is an incredibly important part of the culture that we build in these companies.
Yeah.
I just add to that, science is a team sport. Building companies is like a team sport on steroids, right? Because it's not just the science, it's all of the other people who support the scientists that are doing the work.
Totally.
And I think part of the secret sauce that we have at Flagship, which doesn't get a lot of attention, is we have decades of expertise, not just in science, but in building companies. So that is, of course, the entrepreneurship. But to do entrepreneurship effectively, we need experience in legal, capital formation, financial planning, accounting, procurement, communications, this beautiful event. Yeah, all of these incredible people who support these companies and enable them 100%. To be successful. And I think the success from Flagship actually comes down to the people, the culture, and then to the exponential of 25 years now of experience. All of that compounds over time to maximize the probability of success for everything that we build.
Yeah, great. I'm going to surprise you guys with a question.
Oh boy.
Personal one. Many of you have developed your careers at Flagship, right? You've left school, looked for some kind of endeavor that is scientific yet entrepreneurial, and you've essentially done it at Flagship. You've practiced it at Flagship. What have you learned about yourselves during the time you've been there?
Well, I don't really count. I backdoored into this. I don't think the fellowship would accept me. Coming out of college. So I've definitely had to learn on the fly. Coming in here with the experience I have on creating companies and building programs, and getting to be in the room with associates that came through the fellows program and have gone through this training we provide over the summer. It's the analogy I use. It's almost like improv. I can't say no, right, at this stage. It's about yes and trying to shape our explorations into a place where we can develop a Protoco and a Protoco plan that is tangible and does make sense, but really keeps that sort of, that peak, in view. And so this is some of that tension that you talk about, and this is, Newbar has these phrases that are, oxymoronic, right? And so you really need to embody this on a day-to-day basis in the activities that you're partaking in. So that's my personal learning.
I think the thing that I have learned the most about myself and really about building companies is, well, one, I love building. Like the process of building, not just building a science, but building teams is so essential. And I have really learned to appreciate, and we've talked a lot about it here, how important the people are to what we do. I think often people will talk about, an idea is only the beginning and then it's how you execute. To me, that's so true, but it's also about how do you bring the right people around the table to do something that feels absolutely impossible, and inspire them, get them motivated, and do that on a daily basis when things get really hard, because things do get really hard. People feel down, people have to come back from setbacks. And it's about how you build those teams to be able to deal with those moments, because those moments will come, that really kind of results in the best outcomes, and making the most amount of impact in the world. And I've learned that that's something that I really love to do. I love to bring the right people around the table to solve really impossible challenges. And the problem solving and the strategy that goes into that is just a really fun puzzle on a daily basis. Sure. Something I didn't appreciate as much early in my career that I've learned to really, really value.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I'd say when I started Flagship, I thought that the most important skill was certainty and confidence about where we should be going, how we're doing it. And I've come to learn that actually the most important skill is agility. It's being able to learn and change directions, do experiments that inform and refine our mental model of what we should be doing and how we're going to do it. And so I value more than ever working with people who are highly agile and have a learning mindset to everything that they're doing.
I've heard recently people talk about like know-it-all cultures and learn-it-all cultures and how valuable the learn-it-all culture is. This is something that has absolutely resonated with me and something that I think is just like ingrained in the Flagship ecosystem. The more that we really embrace the fact that, you know, every day we're learning, and it's not that we know, you know, we don't have all the answers, but we're willing to go out there and find the answers and put ourselves on the line to find those answers. It's essential and so important. It's inspiring to be a part of.
And how have you guys shared your lessons amongst yourselves? We're all very much focused on our own endeavors, and they become all-encompassing.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're also, as an organization, evolving a lot. And so what we do is evolving. The resources that we have are evolving. So, you know, we meet, what is it, bi-weekly, you know, together with the Origination partners, just to keep abreast of what's going on in our teams, but also what's coming, you know, for Flagship and how we can adjust, how we originate to meet sort of the newer version of Flagship as we hit our 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
I think another thing that's important in that is that we don't only share those lessons with each other, but the new origination teams that are being built. Jake and I have shared, for example, all of our lessons learned from building Generate, building Tessera, with the junior members of our teams. And I've repeatedly heard from them those are the most impactful experiences that they've had, because those are the lessons they need to be learning. They want to hear like real life, you know, battle stories on the field, war stories. So it's about sharing those lessons across the teams, but also, you know, we're training the next generation of origination leaders, and we have to make sure that they're learning not just from their present day, but from, you know, all of the history of lessons we've all learned.
And the successes.
And the successes.
Not just the failures.
Yeah, I mean, I joined Flagship as an intern 10 years ago, and I'm a partner now, and it's crazy to me when people come and they're like, you've made it to the top, and like it doesn't.
I went to your PhD defense.
You did? Fun fact, I defended my PhD in a tux. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Pictures
I would have teased you about it had I remembered.
Where was I going with this? Oh, right. So, but what I've come to appreciate really is Molly's benefited from it. Kyle joined a little bit later from Avak and Jeff and Newbar,
100%.
building a organization that trains the next generation of leaders, of people who aspire to be great biotech entrepreneurs. And I think some of our most important responsibilities is paying that forward, which effectively enables us to then scale our influence as an organization and do more and take bigger leaps as Flagship.
Yeah, well, all these talks of yours is making me feel old, so I think it's time to wrap up the conversation. So thank you all for your candor and actually improvising with me here. I appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us and getting a sneak peek into what Flagship does, how we do it, and who's doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.